Hello everyone, had a little break in my day to make this video, and I chose the topic of the fundamentalist modernist debate. I chose to do the John Scopes trial, or the so-called Scopes monkey trial. It was a 1925 case in Dayton, Tennessee, in which involved a high school biology teacher, John Scopes. Now, this was supposedly, according to The Sun, which is a newspaper in Tennessee, this was supposedly a test case to challenge the policy in the state of Tennessee against the teaching of evolution in schools. And according to the Bismarck Tribune, their article chronicling America, they were talking also about how this whole case of John T. Scopes was indeed a test case, and it was a case that really underlined I guess you could call it the apex of fundamentalism versus modernism that we saw in the 1920s. But eventually, John Scopes, he was defended by Clarence Darrow in the courtroom against William Jennings Bryan, who was representative of the old guard traditional Christians who taught against or believed that evolution shouldn't be taught in public schools. Now, eventually, John Scopes, the result of the trial, he was, convicted of violating Tennessee's act against teaching evolution in schools. I think he paid something like $100. But reading about this and looking at the articles from the Sun or the Bismarck Tribune or the Richmond Planet, it's really interesting how they depicted this from that point in time, not from our vantage point. And according to the Sun, they were talking about it should be a pretty speedy trial once he's indicted, and that kind of reflects that most people at the time thought that teaching evolution, as far as that we came from monkeys, was blasphemy. But some people can look at this as well, and if you look at science and religion, they don't have to conflict with each other. Science and religion and the Bible can actually coincide. Now, most people now, since then, don't actually believe we evolved from monkeys specifically. There's all kinds of different theories, but humans were certainly different looking, according to archaeological evidence. But it didn't mention in the Bible exactly what people looked like when they were first created. It didn't say how tall they were. It didn't say what their appearances were. Somewhat, it was kind of vague. But it mentions in the Bible, in the book of Genesis, how God created the heavens, let there be light, and he filled the streams with all types of game and things that we could actually use for ourselves. But, and most people don't really believe in the Big Bang Theory anymore either. But that kind of, could coincide with the Bible. Dinosaurs were not called dinosaurs in the Bible, but there is even mention of behemoths and even dragons in the seas, which could, reflect dinosaurs as well. But this really is not only a peek into something that is an ongoing conflict even now between modernists and so-called fundamentalists. It's really, Christianity versus, non-believers much now. But you did have even modernists in the church. Even what I just said about the Bible can coexist with evolution. A lot of people at that time wouldn't have liked it, and there's some people even now who wouldn't agree with that. But really what I try to take from this Christianity and history is that science and religion don't have to go against each other. There's really nobody can definitively, especially unless you just believe in creationism. But if you are a non-believer, nobody knows exactly how the earth was created. And there are all kinds of signs. The more we study the universe, the more we study the earth, the more it reflects a grand creator. But at this time, it was really, people would get fighting mad. I mean, this was blasphemy. And there were all kinds of actions taken in the 1920s and the early 20th century to combat modernist thought from coming into communities and schools and in the church. And even now it continues. You see some so-called church progressives now who are challenging Scripture and what the church should tolerate. But nonetheless, this Scopes trial was a landmark trial, regarding what we should teach in our schools and if science and secularism can actually coexist with Christianity and religion.